In May of 1992, Amiga Power published a list of their top 100 Amiga games of all time. Now, this is a really interesting list to go through because it's in a really interesting point in the Amiga's history where a lot of the classics are coming out, but some haven't arrived yet. So, what do they consider at this point are the best Amiga games of all time? Let's find out, friends. And we'll take the top 10 for this list, starting with taking 10th place is Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker, a game I played quite a lot of back in the day, even though I wasn't much of a snooker person at all, snooker or pool. But I had a demo of this from either One or Amiga, maybe even Amiga Action, but one of the magazines, and we played the hell out of it. There's just something about Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker that just captivated us. And there are some lovely little personal touches that we'll see soon. What did IP have to say about Jimmy White? Well, they said, this game, it has to be said, has been driving us snooker loopy nuts ever since it scored a 90% break in AP4. So slick is its combination of an unbelievably smooth and fast three-dimensional representation of the table with remarkably realistic cue ball control and spot-on sounds that you can almost feel the bass beneath your mouse fingers. Add to this the facility to take on either a second human player or one of 4 corky computer-controlled opponents, including James himself, a trick-shot feature, more worthwhile options you can shake a cue at, and a crucible full of cute touches, and Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker makes all other contenders for the crown look like a load of old balls. You'd be potty to miss it. Now, I'm not sure if I'd place it as high as this would make my top 10 list, but it deserves to be one of the best Amiga games, because it absolutely is. I was so happy to see this in the top 10 list at number 9, and this is Microprose's Nice to the Sky, a game that I have a deep personal history with because it was one of the first flight sims I ever played and the first vintage flight sim I played, and it kind of codified my love for flight sims, particularly Microprose flight sims. There's just something so wonderful about this. It's pretty approachable. It's not as deep a simulation as, say, TheNamec is Red Baron, but it does what it does so well. And if you've played other Microprose flight sims, you know the deal where you create a pilot and you fly mission after mission after mission, and generally randomly generated rather than having any kind of like narrative, and you gain promotions and medals and whatnot. But what Nice to the Sky does really well is wrap them up in some period flair. You get news reports from the front and newspaper clippings, and you'll gather in the squadron bar after missions and gossip about spotting aces and developments, and it's just wonderful. And let's see what AP have to say. Grab your egg and the force and get the bacon delivered. There's a bunch of monkeys on your ceiling, a sausage squad up the blue end, if you will. You know, cabbage crates over the briny and all that. What on earth are you talking about, Ed? Flying a super sick jet fighter armed to the teeth with the very latest and fine weaponry, can prove tedious in the extreme, which is why taking a trip back to Air Combat's formative years with Nights of the Sky proved to be such a breath of fresh air. Its detailed scenery, suitable sounds, and splendid sense of World War One wingsmanship is top hole. Before you know it, Ballyjerry's, Brandy's and Kite Right up in the How's Your Father, and the Hairy Blighter's Dicky Bird who feathered back on the Sammy took a waspy, flying, flipped over Betty Harper's and caught his can in the Bertie. Look, I'm not going to tell you again, Ed. Yes, yes. The people behind Flight Simulator should have Nights of the Sky Night on a collective forehead. It's a constant reminder that flying should be a chortle, not a chore. Nights of the Sky flew high with 87% in AP8. But yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's like such an approachable game. Even if you're not a Flight Simulator if you're not a Flight Simulator flan, choose something else for desserts. But yes, yeah, that's such a good appraisal because it's so approachable and there's enough simulation meat to it to appeal to the hardcore crowd. So yeah, I'm really glad to see that. Taking a spot is Populous 2 from Electronic Arts. And this is one I don't have much personal history with. I played a lot of the first Populous. That was one of my favourite games on the Amiga. But I think it became part of the one of my favourite compilations, Fantastic Worlds. And that was my God game first experience. Populous 2 does iterate and pretty much improve it across the board, so I can see why this is here. It's a more richer Populous experience with new creating your guard and more powers and blessings. You got the whole Greco-Roman aesthetic and theme, which is really cool as well. Let's see what AP has to say. With Populous 2, Peter Molyneux attempted to finish what he started with a mold-forming Populous way back in 1989. Well, he didn't, but he and his Bullfrog buddies begat the be-all and end-all in God Simulation instead. So yeah, in Populous 2, life itself becomes a game in which good and evil attempt to settle their differences by pitting populations against each other. People and land are carefully created in minutes and destroyed in seconds by all manner of natural and unnatural events such as plagues, tidal waves, lightning storms, earthquakes and volcanoes. The long and short of it is that Populous 2 is more of the same, but with bells on the size of Big Ben. Populous 2 looks better, sounds better, has more and better special effects and things to do, and ultimately plays better than its predecessor. And more remarkable is the fact that Populous 2 is better still when played against another human. Unmissable. Populous 2 ruled APA with 93%, a highest rating dished out to that date. So yeah, they were big fans of it. I can see why. It wouldn't go into my top 10 list, especially as if you go a year or two ahead. But yeah, it definitely deserves to be there on a top 100 list.
This is a journey through space.
And at number 7, we have one of my absolute favourite games of all time, especially on the Amiga, and that is Exile. This is an absolutely groundbreaking game. First appeared on the BBC Micro before being ported to a fair number of systems, but never consoles as far as I'm aware, which is a shame really, because it deserves so much more love as being a forerunner to the Metroidvania genre. This is a physics-based puzzler with everything you associate with a Metroidvania. I'm really glad to see it here at number 7 in the top 10 list. So see what AP says. The maddest scientist in the whole universe is performing some unwholesome, existence-threatening experiments in the bowels of a faraway planet. The one you just crashed onto, in fact. With a jetpack strapped to your back, it's down to you to penetrate his heavily guarded, maze-like fortress, destroy the deranged doctor, rescue his unwilling subjects and escape. The strength of Exile's playability lies in the fact that it mimics real-world forces and forms, and as such, places a great emphasis on environmental interaction. There's more thrusting, shooting, exploring, problem-solving, experimenting, of course, fun to be had here than any other arcade adventure. Exile's no oil painting, don't let the C64 graphics put you off, but its unique approach and considerable depth make it an incomparable work of art. It's still regarded by Gary Penn as just the most interesting thing ever. Exile received 89% in AP1. So absolutely deserved. I think the graphics actually look lovely, and I prefer this version, the OCS version, to the AGA remake that got made a couple of years later. It's just wonderful, and it's an absolutely stonking game. Play it if you've not played it before, please. I beg you. Right, here we go with, at number 6, Megalomania. This is a game that absolutely would make my top 10 because it's just wonderful. It's a lovely, awesome, and just fun to play, timelessly so, RTS that never gets old. I've been playing this for a long time, and it's just, there's so much done so well so early on. And that's what IP had to say, for the benefit of anyone who thought that these newfangled god simulation things were far too serious for their own good. Sensible Software's Megalomania is the working man's answer. The idea here is to simply conquer islands, split into digestible sectors, by managing the evolutionary process of a piece of their populace. The remainder is in the hands of up to 3 computer-controlled opponents. This seemingly tedious task actually turns out to be a laugh a minute, thanks to the user-friendly interface, an ever-prevalent sense of silliness, and the use of sample speech from actors specially chosen for the parts to provide oral feedback to the state of play, the novelty of which never wears off. The learning curve is smooth, and a sense of achievement is ever present as you shoulder responsibility for creating and maintaining life, fighting wars, building and breaking alliances, and playing mother to the invention of weapons from spears to major league stuff like thermonuclear devices. Megalomania dominated AP5 with an impressive 90%, and well deserved, absolutely well deserved.
We won!
Well, that was 10 through 6 of Amiga Power's top 10 of their top 100 Amiga games of all time, and yeah, there's some solid titles there. A couple that won't make it into the list for me, but I can see why they're there, especially given the time frame. And I'm glad to see a couple of particular favourites there as well. So a little indulgent list for Sharka here as well. Tune in next week Next Sunday, well, we'll go through 531 and find out what the best Amiga game of all time was in AP's eyes as of May 92. And also thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. And if you've particularly enjoyed what I'm doing and you're not subscribing, consider doing so and slapping a like and stuff and all that good stuff really helps tiny little channels like myself. And until the next episode, this is Coffee and Retro Sharka signing off.